So this is the meaning of Podoh B'Shalom Nafshi is saying is analogous to Lasid Lava. It was completely and utterly complete and peaceful, the redemption, because there's no opposition whatsoever. So much so that the Rabbi, Hayu Imodi, Rabbi meaning first and foremost the world of multiplicity of the many as opposed to the world of Achdus. So in this divisive world, they are with me. And he mentioned here that Lashon Rabim, the very beginning of creation, let us make man. And that was done deliberately. Whoever wants to err should err, and people did. And nonetheless, the end is that in that place of division and error, so there itself, that becomes part of Kedusha and expresses Elikus. So it's not just the Nitzutzis Kedusha in them, but even the Rabbim itself, the Nifal itself, as explained earlier. Similar to Anshe Avshalom, on the one hand, they are Avshalom's men, that part of his rebellion against David the Melech, but inwardly, they themselves is Palalo Avur David. That aspect, he's only bringing that. That wasn't the piece yet, but he's bringing that because that's even the Rabbim itself is Imodi. V'hinei number second paragraph. Al Yidei Aveda Shal Esek HaTorah. That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara teaches, Podoh B'Shalom Nafshi, God is speaking. God is speaking, and he says, I am redeemed by all who involve themselves in Torah, Gemilas Chasodim, and Daven B'Tzibur. And he raised some questions at the beginning of the Maimer, which he doesn't answer in this Maimer, but a subsequent Fabrengen he does. I'm going to learn it later. We'll revisit the questions. At any rate, the Inyan Oisik B'Torah, who Pnimius HaTorah. Oisik in Torah, what level are we talking about that causes this peaceful redemption? Is Pnimius HaTorah Shehi, B'chinas Eitz HaChayim. Torah is the tree of life in Gan Eden, not Eitz HaDas. Like Nigla, the Torah, Shnislapsha Beitz HaDas Toivara, Nigla descended and is enclosed in the tree of knowledge of both good and evil. Whereas Pnimius HaTorah is Eitz HaChayim, which is why, of course, let's say if it's the series is for him is called Eitz HaChayim. Hainish Abirus, the Pnimius HaTorah, so the elevation of the world through Pnimius HaTorah, Shleiva Derech Milchama Klal, it's not getting involved in a battle. Gam like Yitzias HaMelech V'alichas Elemokim, we have not even like Moishe Rabbeinu, Kum Hashem Limnuchasecha. I'm sorry, Kum Hashem V'yafutzevecha, where you have to go to the place of the enemy. You don't have to battle him, but you've got to show a display, a show of strength. So this is not even that. Why? Because this is Megal Atzmus. And therefore, the Pediya is B'Sholem, is totally at peace, and his battle, becomes completely in his battle. And as we explained, Gemilas Chasodim explained is even for the Ashirim, that was Halarichas of the Maimah, that's V'chasidecha Yeranenu, V'chasidecha Yivachucha. Gemilas Chasodim Mamshich Mepnimius HaKeser, as we explained, not just Atik, but Pnimius Atik, and where Yivachucha Ad Lebechinas Malchos, the Malchos canal, as we explained at length in the Maimah till now. And the third thing, what's the emphasis on tzibur? 10. That's now the 10 keichas hanefesh, and that's a tefillah aseres mitshuva, and that is analogous to the tefillah during the 10 days of tshuva when Hashem is found. Seek God when He's found. The Gemara has a contradiction that contradicts Kodav Hashem L'chol Kodav, that call upon God responds to all who call him at any time, not when he's found. The answer is that Kan L'Yachid, Kan L'Tzibur. that for an individual, you need a minyan, but the yochid is even Aseres Tshuva. But tefillah b'tzibur hamshachas pnimius hakesed. So says Tshuva hemshach Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. I'm assuming he means that's the hamshacha, the new hamshacha chadosha, and it draws on achtaras hamelach. It draws on pnimius hakesed. So that's the tefillah b'tzibur. It's the similar inyan of the tefillah of a yachid in Aseres Tshuva, which springs from the essence of the soul. Is not Meirich. I think in the Fabrengen subsequently he does haven't learned it. We'll see. The question beginning of the Maimer was that this obviously Alter Rebbe said this when he was informed of his exoneration and release. So it's got to be connected to this whole reason why he was in prison, which is Afatas Mayonis. What's the connection? Aside from the obvious, he was in prison, and now he's released. But with Pnimis, it must be much deeper. Now we have the answer. After learning the Maimer, the Podoh Beshalom Ligulas Aben Azokin. We understand now the whole meaning, as we explained now, Podoh Beshalom, the Tachlis of Pedia, with the Alter Rebbe's redemption, Shin Yondo Afotas Hamyonis Chutzo, which is, and it is, the spreading of the well springs outside. What's that? We have to spread the well springs outside. So it's the essence, the wellspring to outside. It's exactly what we're talking about. That's Yivarchucha. Ushagam b'pchinas malchus shebemalchus k'moishe b'pchinas chutza. Malchus of within malchus, as it produces a complete world that's outside. Yumshach l'shom, there is drawn the mayin, hamayonas, the wellspring itself, which is loyrak hamayim chayim, which is the highest form of mikveh, which is of immerses in. So it's not only the mayim chayim and imshachim mayonas and the meichatos of the paradum is also from the mayim chayim, but it's even higher than that. It's not the mayim chayim and imshachim mayonas. It comes from the wellspring itself. El mayonas atzvam, the mayan itself. And what's the mayin? That is what we're talking about. The whole mayin with Amshachas Pnimius HaKesed. That's Pnimius HaKesed. The mayim Chaim would be Chitzenius HaKesed. That's what Shlomo Melech was, the mayim Chaim. But the Pnimius HaKesed, that is now Chassidus as Achona to Losid Lova, and where Chutza, the Pchinas Malchus Malchus Chutza. And that's why Shaydi Afatas Mayim Chutza. Mashiach answered the Baal Shem Tov, Osimar, so will come, Do Malka Mashiach, meaning Mashiach. Ki Geras HaKodesh, I do at the Baal Shem Tov, the famous head of the Baal Shem Tov, they wrote to his brother-in-law of Gershon Kitover. We actually have the letter. Ki Afotas Mayonis Chutza, who Inyan, because what's the connection? Afotas Mayonis Chutza is the Inyan of Amshachas, Pnimius HaKesed, the Pchinas HaMalchus and Malchus Kanal. Who Kamoy, and that's like Oisik, but Torah, as we just said, Gemilas Chasodim, Mispalim Hatzibur, Oisik, meaning Pnimius HaTorah, Gemilas Chasodim is the Inyan of Chesed, we explained. Mispalim Hatzibur is Gili Yechidush Benefesh. That's what's being revealed. Aseres Mechuvas Yechidush Benefesh. That's the allusion to the word Kan Beyochid, as explained in Chassidus Yechida. That's Pnimius HaNeshama, which is bound up with Pnimius Atik, with Atzmos Hashem. The Rebbe says, you redeem me, Li, meaning Atzmos, me, beyond all definition. Ulabana and my children, it's Neshamas Yisam Beinomis amongst the nations of the world. So we are redeemed, our inner essence is revealed, and we're Bein the Umos, here in this world amongst the nations of the world. That's the tachlis hakavona of Dira B'Tachtonim. Asher oz yiv esuach hatum avim in the oretz, all the spirit of impurity is removed from the world. V'hoya havaya lemelech al kol ha'oretz. And Hashem will be melech over the whole world, the universe, b'yemehu yiyeh, And on that day, all of the Yukim explain Chassidus, Bayim, and who, which we learned if you recall. Yi Havaya Echad Ushmo Echad. Okay, let's look at the Teichana. It's on your WhatsApp. It's also available here on the table. The Teichana in Yonim, and then we'll learn the Sikha that addresses the unanswered questions. Aaron, have you debated? Are you at least thinking about it?
Quickly I could do
Huh?
it. I don't know how quickly I could do it, but
Sorry.
I don't know how quickly I'd be able to do it.
Still, you're thinking about it. You have a plan? No. Okay, you have the Teichana in your name. Let's look at it. Yiduch Hashem kol ma'asecha v'chasidecha yivarchucha. So all your works will thank you, and your pious ones will bless you. The meaning of the pasuk is yivarchucha, as opposed to just writing yivarchucha with a long chaf rather than a chaf and a hey, because that word divides into two. Yivarchu koi, which means bracha amshochas gidlui oid b'malchus. Now, from what level is koi is malchus? It is that, and it is like, as opposed to this, because malchus conceals, produces concealment and separateness. It's the word of God, right, which conceals that which is invested in the word. So that's koi. Yivorchu. So what are being bamshich? The darga of Yiducha Hashem. Mokim shein loy shein shaykh be'Elohi do belvad. A level where there can be no grasp, but only acknowledgement. That atzmos pnimius hakeset. So in brackets, what do we have here? Hainu sheyesh bo hein hamayla de tefillah. On the one hand, it's amshochas rotzen chodesh, like tefillah here rotzen. It's a new revelation that is above, totally above ishtalshalus. Vein hamayla de bracha, and the mayla bracha. Bracha cannot do that. Bracha just unlocks and commands that which has been determined already by heaven. But here it's in way bracha shbederech tzivui. Later in the Maimon he said it's even higher than derech tzivui. That was the Torah of the Rashbi. The Pinchas ben Yair through his Torah that they command the river to split. But the emes of Podoh Beshalom Nafshi is even higher than tzivui. So within bracha gufa, it comes out from the Maimon. Two kinds of bracha. There's a bracha that commands, and he says if you command, you're already acknowledging that there is the possibility of otherwise, and there's someone you're commanding to, and there's a degree of separation. But when Sadatz and Pnimius HaTorah, it's all one. It's even higher than tzivui. I don't think he makes that point in the Teichen and Yonim. He doesn't. No. And this is called continuing in the summary. Not a summary. It's an overview. So chesed is, number one, higher than simply fulfilling the lack. Can someone tell me, zero in, just give me the Kabbalistic language. What is the lack in Malchus that's got to be addressed first and foremost? The Chsorni Malchus. It's the five inyonim. The five inyonim the Maimon identified that as a result of the Tzimtzum get eclipsed. What's the next thing that Malchus needs? Before Chesed is a dark in between. What's that? Ashirus. We explained, the Maimon doesn't say this, but just to remember for yourself that Chesaron is Mamala, filling Chesaron is filling Mamala Kalalmin. Ashirus is Seva Kalalmin. And Chesed here, which is even Gemilas Chasadim, even Tashirim, that's Pnimius HaKesed. Ato hu Havaya levadecha. Ato and hu and Havaya. The three Roshim that are in Keser. And it's Dafka, the first one, the Radla, that the Ein Sof is invested compromised. The Diyukim, the Rebbe Rashab there, the Zohar, the Kunde Zohar, three sources playing that he was reconciling. Two sources, but with the Rebbe Rashab's beer explaining it. I don't think the Teichon Hayom doesn't give any of that. Let's continue. We're always obligated to God, to ourselves, to the Rebbe, to review the Maimer, but especially a Mugadik Maimer. That means that the Rebbe not just said it and saying it is on a nafshik. So obviously invests himself, his very etzem in every Maimer, but it's also Muga. And Muga is an Avodah Gedolah. And it's very meduyak. If you look at you see the galleys of the Rebbe's Ha'oras, you see how incredibly nuanced and precise the Diyukim are in his editing, aside from sometimes writing entire paragraphs and Ha'oras. So we're really owed to ourselves. Let's begin with that. The Chazad is Maimer, coming to Yitas Kistev Rashon Lechsidis, Yitas Kistev Maimer. This is a biggie. We should really put a lot of emphasis. Shabbos, before Shabbos, Thursday night, learn the Maimer. Continue. So this Hamshocha, which is Chesed, is higher than the Bechsoden, but the Hainu Hamshochas Giloi Shalamayim Meshachas La'ilm is beyond creation, beyond Ishtalshalus. Where it's tzedakah in brackets, it's Miliach Soden, charity. Tzedakah simply fills the lack. That's the 5 inyanim that the Tzimtzum eclipses, that we have to restore. I put it in simple language. The three dargas are revealing God as creator, revealing God as beyond creator, and Atzmos beyond creator. That's the three dargas. Miliach Soden is to reveal the creator. There's a creator and responsible for every detail of creation. That's a wonderful level 1 relationship. Ashiris is the Eivish is beyond creator. And the third daga, that pure chesed is beyond. There's no language there anymore, but Atzma is beyond. So now he's talking about the second level, Pnimius HaKesed, Beifan Kloli. Then he went into that. Gufa identified as Ashiris. Now Ashiris per se, he goes into say Shleimus, and Ashiris b'mei Shleimus. So the apex of wealth was the time of Shloime, She'er, Gili, Nail, Bayos, a very lofty revelation was revealed. Distant sparks were drawn to him. And that was effortless and peaceful. It was in a tranquil way. The Menagi became completely nullified. No need for war, not even for a display of strength. That's the mile of the Beis Hamikdash of the Mishkan of Moishe Rabbeinu, which was the order to travel in the desert. And they scattered, that's true, but there was an element of engagement. Even after they were refined, so the path to the promised land was cleared, but the Menagdim remained. But that's Shloim is beyond that. But then there's a third level. There's a third level, and that's Chassidus, Pnimius HaKesed, that's Mashiach, which is higher even than Ashirish, Amshachas, Mepchinas Pnimius Atik, but then Atik itself, Pnimius Atik. And he identified in the brackets here, he just identifies the whole discussion. The Maimeh, what does it come out in the end? It's Ein Sof Shebel Radla. There's Gimel Roshim, but where is it invested? It's Dafkin Radla, Reishad Leis Yada, Shehu Ikin in Atik, that words of Rashab, that's Ikin Inyan of Atik, Ubachlalos, so it's Chaim. Ubachlalos, Atzmus Ein Sof, and Atzmus, that's what we're talking about. So that level of Chasidech, Emes Chesed, which is even to Ashirim, Ishiti Losid Lovoi. And that is it's beyond the revelation of Shlomo Melech. And therefore, critical to that is The next point that Yumshach Hagilu Gam Lamata, the reach lower is greater. The Malchus de Malchus. Koyach HaPoel Benifel, the actual created being. First of all, the divine force in the created being, and then in the Nifal itself. Vad Lamata, but Agashmi, the physical world. Now, the Rebbe Rashab said, explaining why Chasidecha, he said, the base at time Shem Shachar that the Chasidecha Dafke, why is it Chasidecha? Mamshicht is Dagar of Chesed. He gave two biurim. One mitzad a bittel, Eze a Chassid am is Chasid im Koinoi. The avoid is not for self, but for God. And then mitzad yin Achsidis. What's in Achsidis? One definition of Achsidis is he looks and views and relates to his own faculties, his own physical body, and it's everything. It's a reflection of the divine. So the Rebbe asked in the mind, what is the second point? Bittul is enough. And he answered, because bittul, that's not the kavanah. Not the kavanah of your bittul. The kavanah is that even the matan, the nifel, the gashmi should reflect. So your own metzius has to reflect godliness. As we said, not who you, everything you. But that comes after the who you. Lochin ein tzedech. So you need both in Yanim. And therefore, ein tzedech, now there was it before, he does say it. Ein tzedech betzivid, it is in the summary. Ein tzedech betzivid lam shachos, there's no need to command it. Even though bracha usually is, you shall be benched, it's beyond that, like Rashbi. He said, Torah on the Pasuk, in Matevim Mandoim Shevesachim Gam Yachad, he spoke the mile of Eden, and the rain fell. When you have to have a commandment like Pinchas ben Yoel, the world is something, you got to command it. Hey, play along. When Atmos is revealed, there's no need to command the world. When Atmos is revealed, the world itself is nothing other than expression of Him. Podoh B'Sholem, and that's the end of the final paragraph we just learned now. Podoh B'Sholem, Shabdi Delosed B'Tachlis, from the redemption, the future is an absolutely peaceful way. Therefore, Ki Barabim Ha'yimodi. And therefore, because the many were with me, says David HaMelech, Shagam Eilish Animtzoyim, Shimtzoyim, P'chinas Rabim, even the many, where there's division, misachtim betachlis, unite completely with the likus. P'di Yisrael Isaac b'Torah, that's dafka through involvement in Torah, namely dafka pnimis haTorah and Gilutz Chasodim and Tefillah b'Tzibur, which he explained Tzibur Yochid kan beYochid Gili Yichidish b'Nefesh, and therefore Shein Yonam Amshachas pnimis haKeser, they elicit not stam Keser but pnimis haKeser, and hence the Podoh B'Sholem Nafshi. Okay, now let's look at, it's also posted, friends, on the chat, the Sikha. And we have copies here, which you can all take. I haven't learned it, we're going to learn it together. So this was a few weeks later, or how many weeks later? I don't know. It wasn't even the next Shabbos. So the Maimed was said by the Fabrengen, there are two questions which the Maimed didn't address. So we don't know why this is so. We don't know why, when that was my gear, we could have answered it in the Mugad de Kemaima. No. The Rebbe chooses should remain unanswered and answered in the Sikha. This is completely beyond us.
When, was the Maimer not set on Shabbos?
No.
So the Maimer was earlier in the week?
Yeah. It was 2 weeks earlier.
Oh.
Week and a half earlier. There was a Shabbos in between.
Right.
The Maimer, I need to get to this Menachem, but it doesn't tell us here. It's a week and a half later.
Yeah.
This Kislev is not the Vayeshev
There's a gap of time, like a nice gap of time also.
Huh?
It's a gap of time.
Yeah. So he said, what's the question?
Not really.
Number one,
Not really, but it's okay.
it was when?
I think it's the Shabbos. Vayeshev has always got. Vayeshev is always by Yutas Kislev. Vayeshev in my case is Yutas Kislev and Chanukah. We can check. L'chayre.
Huh?
Not sure on the time.
We just get to Res Menachem. Yeah, Chaim, look it up. You'll see it. You'll see the dates. Okay. The questions of Ahaim. Aleph. The first question was that there's three things here. Torah, B'letz Chasodim, and Tefillah B'tzibur. But they're divided into two. How are they divided into two? Remember, there's a question. Look at the Maimer. The very beginning. Second, the Eis Beis. Torah B'letz Chasodim, that's Sholem. Did you say that? Why is Torah B'letz Chasodim Sholem? Why are they Sholem? Rashi explains, Torah is the wholeness of Sholem, all the pathways of Sholem. And Gemilas Chasodim obviously promotes peace. And Tefillah B'tzibur, that's Kibrabim Hoyim Bodi. Tefillah B'tzibur is not a unit of Sholem. So you have to understand this division. And the second question, Beis, Diyak, are we clear on the question? Yeah, why is it divided that way? Diyak Haloshan Kol Ha'isek, where the emphasis on the person, where as opposed to Torah itself, unlike focus, as opposed to focusing on the actual Torah and Tefillah B'tzibur themselves, as we find usually in Pirkei Avos, on three things the world stands in Torah and Avodah and Gemilas Chasodim. Doesn't say on the one who learns Torah and. So what's the diak on the Adam here, on the person, rather than the virtue of the three in Yonim themselves, Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Chasodim? So these were not answered in the Maimer. Let's begin. So the first diuk, the division, that Torah and Gemilas Chasodim are Sholem. And Tefillah B'tzibur is Barabim Hoyim Bodi. So they understand this. We have to understand the reason for the order of these three things, namely Torah, Gemilas Chasodim, and Tefillah. The L'chayra would appear that Hutzrech Lahaktim Tefillah B'tzibur and Torah Gemilas Chasodim. Surely Tefillah comes before Torah and Gemilas Chasodim. Shari Ikazman Talmud Torah. When are you obligated to learn? Umailis Limit Torah, and the virtue Torah is enhanced when it follows Tefillah. Torah comes after learning, after davening, and is elevated by davening. The Gemara, being in Shetei Tefillah, some of Tefillah always made sure that his Tefillah was close to his bed. When he woke in the morning, the first thing was Tefillah, and then Torah. Rabbi, I think. More in Barachas. So we have to understand the Seder. And when you engage the world to give tzedakah, that's the third thing. Kapsakdin, at the Psakdin in the Gemara, the Seder of the day is Mebeis HaKnesses, first from the house of prayer, Tefillah, to where Lebeis HaMedesh, to the house of learning Torah, and then he goes to his affairs. Yinagbem derech, he conducts himself in the way of the world, and that's what? Making a living and giving tzedakah. Then he's giving bilas chasodim, he's giving loans and helping people, etc. Acts of kindness. So the Seder should be what? Tefillah. Oh, they say you answer your question. They say yes, we answer. Yeah, Tefillah, and then Torah, and then Gemilas Chasodim. And how is the Seder? Next up, Torah, which should be second, is first. Gemilas Chasodim, which should be third, is second. And Tefillah, which should be first, is third. Huh? Yavshi gam koed matfil tzarich li is gemach. No, you would say that no, there's Gemilas Chasodim before davening. Only first, Rabbi Elazar would first give a coin to a poor person. Then he would daven. So yes, Gemilas Chasodim does come first. Doesn't answer our problem. Here's Torah's first. But if we put a third, no, it should be before davening. Answer. This is different. This is Mashachona L'Tfilah. This is not the Avodah Gemilas Chasodim. This is a preparation. It's part of Tefillah. It's not the Avodah. Obviously, you're putting a few coins in tzedakah pushka. Gemilas Chasodim is you're out there, you're involved in people's lives, who needs help, etc. It's a whole Avodah. So that's number one. And moreover, Mikol Shkein, sheyoy pruta einyin shelo oisik, giving a coin to a poor person is not involvement in Gemilas Chasodim. He's come to put out his hand and give him a coin. He's asked us Gemilas Chasodim. So therefore that is not in Gemilas Chasodim at all. Likewise, you would argue that there's also Torah before Tefillah. Daf shekedem at Tefillah oimrim apsukim divarechacha. We said in Birchas HaTorah, in Birchas HaShachar, we made the brachas over the Torah. When we said the psukim, we quoted psukim, quoted the Mishnah, Masechta Peah. So the answer is that's also not in Avosik b'Torah. Limud ze ein zis askus b'Torah. That's not being involved in a piece of Gemara. It's not time where you're learning. Vikis askus b'Torah achar tefillah dafka. When is that after tefillah? So back to our question. The Seder should be tefillah, Torah, and Gemilas Chasodim. We continue Beis Hashem tomorrow. Wonderful day, everybody. Psudas Tovos.